Good morning, children. Hope you all are fit and fine. As you all know, our syllabus of test 2 has been completed. So now let's get started with revision work. And revision session will surely help you to understand the things in much better way. Okay? Students, I prefer to choose modals in today's revision session. As we already know what are modals, let's take a look on it once more. A modal verb is an auxiliary verb that expresses necessity or probability. Modal verbs are always used along with a principal verb. The verbs can, could, may, might, must, will, would, shall, should, and ought are modal verbs. Modal verbs do not have different forms. They are followed by bare infinitive, means without to, except for ought, which is followed by a to infinitive. Example of modal verbs are: she can do her work of her own. You could get hurt if you jump from the height. He might come today evening. You ought to get your eyes checked. He must not go to his enemy zone. Here, can, could, might, ought to, must are modal verbs. Modal verbs do not denote tense, but they can refer to the present or the future. For example, I must go now. This is present tense. You must call me early tomorrow morning. This is future tense. Now let us know what are modal verbs of obligation and necessity. The modal verbs must, have to, should, ought, and need expresses obligation or necessity. Must is used when we want to say that it is necessary or very important that something happens in the present or future. It gives orders and advice. It is also referred to speculate about the truth of something. Example, you must be joking. Speculation. You must be here by 6 o'clock. This is order. Must have plus past participle is used to express certainty about something that occurred in the past. For example, she must have got the good result to get admission in Cambridge University. Right? Now, have to. Have to is not a modal verb, but it is often grouped with other modal verbs. It is used to express necessity. For example, we have to reach the station by 8 o'clock. Students, now let's understand the reason. The reason is because the train leaves at 10 past 8. Another example, I have to get a new pair of spectacles. Now, have got to. Have got to. It has the same meaning as have to and is often used in everyday speech. For example, I have got to call my mother. Students, we must remember that must is used to express necessity when the speaker decides that something is necessary, while have to is used to express necessity when someone other than the speaker has made the decision. This is actually the main difference between the two. For example, I must finish the report by tomorrow. Here, the speaker decides. Second example, I have to finish the report by tomorrow. Here, someone other than the speaker has made the decision. Is it okay? Now, let's understand should and ought to. Should and ought to are used to express duty or obligation, usually in the form of advice or suggestion. They are less emphatic than must. Let's take should first. The first point to use should is the past form of shall. Second rule, It is used to express duty or obligation. Let's take an example. I should help my friend. This is duty. You should not be lazy. Obligation. Now, third point, it is used to express opinion. Example, they should be on the way to Jaipur. Number 4 rule, it is used to take advice or suggestion. Example, we should go to the temple. Another example, we should obey our elders. Negative form of should is should not or shouldn't. SHOULDN'T. Example, you should not come to me daily. Now ought to. Ought to is a semi-modal verb because it is in some ways like a modal verb and in some ways like a main verb. Unlike modal verb, it is followed by to, but like modal verbs, it does not change form of person. What are the rules to follow it? Number 1, it is used to express moral obligation or duty. For example, you ought to respect your parents. Another example, you ought to serve the nation. Let's have one more example. We ought to speak the truth. Second point is, it is also used to give advice. Example, you ought to study hard to achieve success. And negative form of ought to is ought not to. For example, you ought not to hate your neighbors. You ought not to insult your elders. The next modal verb is need. Need is also a semi-modal verb because in some ways it is like a modal verb and in other ways like a main verb. We use need mostly in negative form to indicate that there is no obligation or necessity to do something. In brief, we can say need is most typically used in negative sentences or in affirmative sentences with a negative meaning. For example, I doubt whether I need help you. You need not worry about that. No one need to be surprised at what happened. Need is a modal verb also occur in interrogative sentences, but this use is much more formal. Example, need you make so much noise? Students, we should also know that need is a main verb is followed by a to infinitive and expresses that something is necessary. It can be used in affirmative, negative and interrogative sentences. Let's have an example. Do you have a minute? I need to talk to you about something. Second example, I don't need to be told that I should work harder. So students, in the end, I would like to say that struggling to understand how modal verbs function is entirely normal as their range of application is quite broad. So practice is most important. Okay? That's all in today's session. Meet you soon. Goodbye for now.